Regulatory and law enforcement investigations involving customers. Financial institutions frequently encounter situations in which regulators, law enforcement agencies, financial intelligence units, or other governmental authorities conduct investigations involving customers. Such investigations may relate to money laundering, terrorist financing, sanctions violations, fraud, corruption, tax crimes, or other financial offenses. The CAMS framework emphasizes that institutions play an important role in supporting legitimate investigations while maintaining compliance with confidentiality obligations and legal requirements. Institutions must balance cooperation with authorities against customer privacy protections and operational responsibilities. Effective responses require coordination among compliance, legal, risk management, and operational teams to ensure that investigative requests are handled accurately, securely, and consistently. Additional steps when a customer is under investigation. When an institution becomes aware that a customer is the subject of a regulatory or law enforcement investigation, additional risk management measures may be warranted. Institutions should review customer due diligence records, reassess the customer's risk profile, increase transaction monitoring, and evaluate recent account activity for suspicious patterns. Enhanced due diligence may be appropriate depending on the nature of the investigation and associated risks. Compliance personnel should document all actions taken and maintain confidentiality throughout the process. Importantly, institutions should avoid tipping off customers regarding investigative activities unless legally authorized. Ongoing communication with legal counsel and compliance leadership helps ensure appropriate handling of evolving circumstances. Enhanced monitoring and escalation framework. A structured response model for customer-related investigations includes risk reassessment, enhanced monitoring, internal escalation, documentation, and ongoing review. Transaction monitoring thresholds may be adjusted to identify unusual activity more effectively, while investigators may conduct additional reviews of account relationships, beneficial ownership information, and transaction flows. Significant developments should be escalated to senior management, compliance committees, or other governance bodies as appropriate. Institutions should maintain clear records of investigative actions and communications with authorities. The objective is to support legitimate investigations, manage institutional risk exposure, and ensure that customer relationships remain consistent with regulatory expectations and the institution's risk appetite. Institution as the subject of a regulatory investigation. When a regulatory authority or law enforcement agency investigates the institution itself, the situation becomes significantly more complex because potential consequences may include enforcement actions, monetary penalties, remediation requirements, business restrictions, or reputational damage. Investigations may focus on AML compliance deficiencies, sanctions violations, governance failures, suspicious activity reporting weaknesses, transaction monitoring gaps, or customer due diligence shortcomings. The CAMS framework emphasizes that institutions should respond professionally, transparently, and cooperatively while protecting legal rights and maintaining operational continuity. Early coordination among senior management, compliance, legal counsel, internal audit, and relevant business units is essential for an effective response. Actions institutions should take during investigations. Institutions subject to regulatory or law enforcement investigations should establish a coordinated response strategy. Relevant documents, records, and communications should be preserved immediately to prevent inadvertent destruction of evidence. Institutions should designate responsible personnel to manage communications with investigators and ensure that information requests are addressed accurately and promptly. Internal reviews may be conducted to identify potential deficiencies, assess root causes, and evaluate the need for corrective actions. Senior management and the board of directors should be informed regarding significant developments. Maintaining transparency, cooperation, and strong documentation helps demonstrate the institution's commitment to compliance and responsible governance. Information sharing and AML/CFT effectiveness. Information sharing is a critical component of effective AML/CFT compliance because financial crime frequently involves multiple institutions, jurisdictions, products, and individuals. Sharing relevant information can improve detection of money laundering, terrorist financing, sanctions evasion, fraud, and other illicit activities. However, customer-related information is often subject to privacy laws, banking secrecy requirements, data protection regulations, contractual obligations, and regulatory restrictions. The CAMS framework emphasizes that institutions must carefully evaluate legal and compliance requirements before sharing information. Effective information sharing practices require balancing financial crime prevention objectives with obligations to protect customer confidentiality and sensitive personal information. Factors to consider before sharing customer information. Before sharing customer-related information, institutions should evaluate several important factors. These include applicable privacy laws, banking secrecy requirements, data protection regulations, customer consent provisions, regulatory authorizations, and legal restrictions within relevant jurisdictions. Institutions should also consider the purpose of the information request, the identity and authority of the requesting party, the sensitivity of the information involved, and the adequacy of confidentiality protections. Cross-border information sharing may require additional analysis because legal requirements often differ among jurisdictions. Compliance, legal, and privacy professionals should participate in evaluating requests to ensure that disclosures are lawful, appropriate, and adequately controlled. Information sharing governance model. A robust information sharing governance model includes authorization procedures, legal review, confidentiality controls, documentation requirements, and ongoing oversight. Institutions should establish policies defining when information may be shared, who may authorize disclosures, and what safeguards must be applied.